Hi, Abhi. Welcome to Film Companion South.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, so I've been like, I need to start with this admission that your show, Akkara Karchikal, is one of the reasons why a lot of people like me first discovered YouTube. It's to watch episodes of Akkara Karchikal that you really went on YouTube and kind of started exploring what it's like. And then you really understood that this is really crazy sitcom that really appeals to us. People who've probably grown up watching Friends and Seinfeld and all that. And this show, even though it's in Malayalam, it really appeals to me. So I just want to start the influences. Before Akkara Karchikal, I just want to start with your influences and the entire idea of a sitcom working in Malayalam, you know, in the
Sure,
true
sure.
American meaning of the word. Yeah.
Okay, sure. I think we hear that a lot. I think agriculture is still watched by a lot of people, and it
Yeah.
all happened very accidentally. All happened
Yeah.
very accidentally because we started in 2008, 2009, when YouTube was not even mainstream yet.
Popular.
Uh,
Yeah. Correct. Yeah.
it was not even mainstream. So Ajay and I had an idea of making a Malayalam film. Okay, we went out about it for about a year and a half. We went to all producers. Nobody was listening to us. Nobody was hearing our story. So we were deciding, like, we have a house, we have a camera, we have some actors on board. Why don't we just do something on our own about lives that we live, and we're like, okay, like Ajay and I both had a job at that time. We were both working in a corporate environment, and then all of a sudden we sat down and created this idea about, hey, what happens if this Malayalis that are in America, like what are their stories, like about going to church, about the associations that's happening. If you live abroad, Kerala, I think your mindset is a little different. You still want to keep on to your culture. You don't want to let that go, but still you're living in an outside world. So it's the balance of it that no one was really talking about. So that's a kind of the stumbling block that we got into making this show.
When you're raised in a foreign country, like raised in America for lived in America pretty much all your life, when you're writing Malayali characters, when you're writing something for Malayalam, do you doubt yourself when it comes to writing maybe a Malayali character living in Kerala, or do you feel you're best suited to write an NRI character or an NRI setting film or a show?
So the thing is that I grew up watching Malayalam films.
Yeah.
Even when I grew up in New York, New Jersey area, but lived watching Malayalam films. And that was my way back into the culture, watching Malayalam films, and that's how I really got into films. I remember every week, my dad used to go to the local Malayali store and get one of the VHS cassettes for $1. Okay, and I grew up on that. So from that point on, I always wanted to make a film. But later on, I realized that maybe I am a little too detached to that world. Okay, maybe I am a little detached to that world. I think I know what an average Malay's life is like there from those movies, that I've seen like
Okay.
maybe 10, 15 years ago. Okay, so I always felt like whatever character I do, and honestly, it goes back into what you believe in. It goes back into what you lived through. So in any films or any things that I've done, I feel like there's a little of me that's NRI in it, in the character. No matter where it's situated, I feel like that is bound to happen.
We talk about Akkara Karchagala, it's so culturally rooted, right? There are so many in jokes, there are so many pop culture references in that. And it's a lot of things that are really rooted in that Malayali culture, not just the NRI Malayali culture, but even regular Malayalis, things that regular Malayalis follow. So when you created something that is so rooted, and then you're trying to remake that with a totally different cast and a totally different set of people, how difficult was it to kind of crack that milieu, because Gujaratis might be very different from Malayalis, right? The broad storylines can still work, but then how about culturally recreating all the nuances that you had in Akkara Karchigal to that Gujarati context?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a very difficult task, because jokes are so subjective, and jokes are so
Yeah.
um, you know it's so specific to a culture, to a language, and I don't think you could recreate it. I really don't think you could just take one thing and just go to another language and recreate it. I think you need to know a little bit of the culture. I think you need to know a little bit of the innuendos that happen in that world to justify, telling a story or even cracking that joke. So in the beginning, we were thinking, okay, situations could be the same. Situations could be the same because an expat, like someone who's coming out of India to an American, it's a cultural difference, and there's a bunch of stories that you could say. But I kind of, when I was talking with Ajahn about this, we were thinking, we go the Gujarati route because I got married into a Gujarati family. So my wife is
Okay,
Gujarati,
okay,
and
okay.
there was so many jokes, between the Mallus and the Gujus, because I think culturally we're very different. You know,
Yeah.
my marriage itself was like such an very interesting and like a funny element where the entire my entire Gujarati family is out dancing and everything else, and my Malayali family is out there in one little corner sitting down,
Okay.
properly just enjoying the thing. So I feel like there's so much different cultural barriers that we wanted to explore, and that's one of the reasons why we got into this metro park, because we wanted to see what the different culture differences is between these two various states.
Oh, and that's how you enter the show because you're basically Omi's character, right? You're trying to enter that show and giving it that whole autobiographical element through Omi's character.
Yeah, I mean,
Is that fair to
I think
say?
it's something is relevant there, right? Some fact that I
Yeah,
don't know if
yeah,
it's
yeah,
fully there, but no matter what we do, I think there's
yeah.
a little bit of that in there. Because Ajahn purely works on, I used to work in IT, and we had many jokes about ITs, and Ajahn was like a parent, all that stuff. So I think all of that comes into the character between Omi and Ranveer as well.
Tell me about the process. Like, I think a lot of our audience, they pretty much know all the episodes of Akarakachagal by heart, right? So when we go into the episodes, can you and when you decide on what episodes is fine, like are remakeable
Yeah.
in the sense, how do you kind of decide this is something we can remake or this is something we shouldn't remake? And using examples, can you just tell me a couple of those those decisions that you had to make?
Yeah, see, I think one or two of the decisions that we made was, we kept the Ranveer's character, which was Joe Sitton's character at that time, have an insurance business. We kept
Hmm.
that. I think that's the only little thing that ties both the worlds together. That they both have this insurance business.
Hmm.
Everything else, besides like that, I think the whole format is very different because even though it talks about a family, the wives are very different. The kids are very different. Even like the Ranveer's character, Kalpesh, is owning a convenience store, which is very
Hmm.
new to us. Which is
Hmm.
very new to us. And we never had like that Omi's character at that time, which was a younger take on the modern family, right? It's
Yeah, yeah.
more of a modern family versus like the older generation and the clash between the two. So we try to you know dwell into those two worlds as well. Where the Omi's character is all about like fitness. He's about keto diets, all of that. While Ranveer's character is a very backwards. I don't know if it's right to say backwards, but a very like strict
Traditional.
traditional
Yeah.
type of a person.
No, but can you tell me, like, off the top of your mind, what is the episode that you thought would be tough to, like, impossible to recreate in the whole Gujarati setting? One episode from Akkara Kachikal, which you thought, like, let's not touch that, you know?
Yeah, I think there's a bunch of them. I think one of them was certainly going. There's one episode which was it's called Omina Onam, where
Okay.
it was just about these Malayali associations coming together and fighting over. Who's going to be on the paper, who's going to have their face in the paper. Things like that is very like Malayali
Yeah.
rooted, and
Yeah.
I don't know if it transfers into the Gujarati culture. So,
Yeah.
but there's a bunch of things, vice versa, like that we've done in Metro Park that we couldn't have ever recreated into Akra either.
This is something, I mean, I just interviewed, like, a couple of weeks back, I interviewed a bunch of Telugu filmmakers who just made their first independent film. So this is something I asked them as well. What is the what happens to you guys? Like, you guys are working there, you guys have really comfortable, cushy jobs. What happens somewhere 15 or 20 years into your career where you get bit by this whole film television bug, and then you just decide to switch careers? Like, what do you think is about the air of America that makes you do that? Starting with Nagesh Kukunur and Shekhar Kamula and so many in Telugu, right?
Yeah, yeah. I think it is. I think you always have the passion of filmmaking, but I think it's deep, like ingrained in us to have something safety, right? And
Hmm.
like so you follow that path until you realize that like the safety is not there, you know. The safety was never
Yeah,
there.
yeah,
The
yeah.
safety was never there. And you just, it comes to a place, and it happened to me 5 years into my career, that
Hmm.
you just have to say, no, I think this is enough. Like, I think either you do it now or you like kind of regret it for the rest of your life.
So even when you're taking that plunge, like when you started shooting Akara Kachikal, at what space is it operating? Is it a little more elevated? Like, is it slightly more than a hobby, or is it okay? I want this to be my career, but let's start somewhere. Like, at what
Yeah.
place was that decision?
No, I think it was always more than a career. So whenever we shot Akara Karchal, the way we would do it is that both Ajay and I would have our corporate jobs, and during lunch, during the week, we would meet together and we would sit and discuss ideas. Ajay would go back writing. We would uh, shoot on the weekend, Saturday, Sunday. I would edit from Monday to Thursday. So I think the corporate job was like a side hustle for me. It was not the main thing. I think Akrakarshal and like filmmaking was always the biggest thing that we had, and the job was something that we just went to. And eventually, like it kind of gave us some sustainability to build this on our own. Because at that time YouTube was not doing revenue share or any of that. There was no, nobody paid us. Kylie TV wasn't like making payment to us, so we had to make ourselves do this thing by ourselves. So we needed some sort of funding, and the funding came from our jobs.
Oh, so you guys produced the whole thing with salaries.
Correct, correct.
So how differently, like, let's say you're at that career, you're at that 5 year mark in your career right now, and if you're trying to start this whole thing now, how easy or how differently would you have approached it now? You have
I
the
think
OTTs, you have Amazon, you have Netflix. Do you think it's easier for people like you now?
I think it's easier and harder too. I feel like it could be a little harder now because I think there is a lot of influx of things that are happening in this space. I think especially with the pandemic going on in 2020, I think people have been writing. Okay, for the past year, people have been
Yep.
writing, and I think Netflix, Amazon are inundated with so many scripts that they don't know which one to choose. Okay, so I
Hmm.
think there's so much content at that right now that's happening. So I think it becomes a little difficult to approach them and then get something greenlit and get going. The way we've done it in the past, the way we've done Akara Kartal, we've done Brown Nation, all of that, we created something on our own. We self-funded it, shot the
Hmm.
entire thing, whether it's 9 episodes, 10 episodes, and then take it out to sell it. It's a very risky move
Hmm.
because like it's your money, it's your investors' money, but the end of the day, it's your baby. It's like no one is touching it until like you have something, and then if people like it, they take it. If not, you are out of a lot of money. But it's a risk that we took back and forth, and so far it has worked out for us. Um, just because I think we just got into the I think we might have gotten lucky and we chose the right projects. But and I don't think we would have, looking back at it now, I don't know if things would have been that easy if you went to an OTT platform like Netflix and Amazon said, "Oh, we have something like this. Would you be able to like greenlight it?"
So one of the things I feel like the model that you guys created, of course, without the revenue share that YouTube is offering right now, one of the other people who I feel have kind of taken up the space that you guys had kind of pioneered is the whole Karik group, right?
Yes.
And it somehow seems to connect, like even the comedy that they do, the harmless, nice, fun, like the light comedy zone that you guys had
Yeah.
identified is where they operate as well.
Yeah.
But why do you think that hasn't really converted to like an entire, like the dramas coming out on YouTube, or the entire Malayali series space, right? Or the television space is still very TV oriented. We've not had those great Netflix shows or those Amazon shows. Why do you think that is? Like, given that you're one of the pioneers, have you tried yourself to kind of get something made in Malayalam, or do you think it's still the OTTs that are calling the shots? It'll take a little more time for us to kind of get there.
I think it's a little bit of both. I think you need a team like Karik to do it. I think if
Yeah.
there's more teams like that, I certainly think content would work. If the right content is there, it definitely works in Malayalam. And I'm sure there's probably four different versions of Akarkashal that you could do. This was about the expats. Why not something like this within Kerala? Why not something like this within the space?
Hmm.
Because I'm sure there's tons of family stuff that the smaller village stuff that could be definitely played out. um, I honestly feel it's another thing too. Like I think with the OTTs, I don't know if it's financially viable yet for Malayalam's series. Whereas
Hmm.
like with Telugu, Tamil, Hindi, it's still it's in the early phases. But I feel like Malayalam will come around within the next year, a year and a half, and I'm sure you will see an influx of Malayalam content going that route.
Like I mentioned to you about the Telugu directors, right? The difference I feel with them is when the bug bites them, they somehow travel to Hyderabad. They make
Yes.
that move. They leave all their IT jobs behind, and they make that move to Hyderabad, and they become really great directors there.
Yeah.
Why doesn't that happen so much with you guys? Like, why do you guys decide to stay on? And do you feel it's even important for a Malayali director based in the US to travel to Kerala and even make a Malayalam movie there, or can you just still continue to work as an American Malayalam filmmaker there?
I honestly feel like it all depends on the story, because story it routes everything that you do. So if you were going to tell a story about the expats, if you're going to tell a story about something here, you'd definitely be here to do that, because there's enough stories to be told. But I feel like if you're definitely doing a Malayalam film that is deep rooted in Kerala, I think you definitely have to move, and it's something that I want to pursue. That I think we all want to pursue, going out there and to make a film.
Is that something that you're planning on doing like sometime soon?
Yeah, I definitely want to do that. Like in one of the near future, I definitely want to make an authentic Malayalam film. It's like no matter what you do in Hindi, English, and all that, right? There's something that is very satisfying when you make a Malayalam project. And I don't know why it is, what it is, but it's something I can't explain. But there's something very satisfying about it.
So when you started around the 2008, 2008 is correct, right? Like around
Correct.
2008,
Correct.
2009, Malayalam cinema was in a very, very different space back then,
Yeah.
compared to now, like especially after 2011, where Malayalam cinema is now is very, very different, far ahead of what was happening in 2000, in the 2000s. When you look back at that period, when you kind of started, when you look back at that time when you started, how differently would you kind of like as someone who watches movies there, how differently would you kind of compare the two decades? And as far as being a director is concerned, do you feel that the whole competition idea, the idea that you're competing with so many really talented directors, is it a lot more daunting, or you feel they've made it really conducive for people like you guys to come and make whatever film that you guys want to make?
I think it's a little bit of both. I do agree that when we started Akra Karshal, I think the landscape of the film was very different from now, and I think it's only because like you rightly said, 2011 on. I think you had good directors on top of good directors on top of good directors that were both competing and contributing to each other. That made it so great. I think it just opens up
Yeah.
a lot more space that you could say you could give a smaller film and make it work, and it's not about like the big stars anymore. It's about content, and I think that
Yeah.
has
Yeah.
really like taken a hold in the Malayalam film industry, which is a great thing too, which is a great thing. So I think right now to be in that industry, it's such a very beautiful time. It's such a beautiful time to like create something and have your own space, even if it's not a big space. You could make something small for a certain audience, and it could still work. And that fact that it could still travel, with Netflix and Amazon and all these other OTT platforms that you're able to like transform like these small little creation into like and have a larger audience that's worldwide. It's just amazing.
You mentioned like you said, right? The OTT is being flooded with a lot of content because suddenly there's so many new scripts that's being written and so many directors who've really thought through a few scripts. What was your lockdown like? Like what did you do during this time? Do you also have a lot of new things that kind of got produced during the lockdown period?
Yeah, I think we wrote a lot. We wrote a Malayalam feature. We wrote a Hindi feature. We also we also did a quarantine episode of Metro Park where we figured, oh wait, all these characters, we were supposed to shoot something at that time in May, June. We were supposed to shoot Metro Park season 2 at that time, and like because of COVID we couldn't do it, and we were thinking what is something that we could do, and we shot an entire quarantine version where we had all the actors sit in their house and record, send us back things, and kind of make it fluid in a way that it seemed like it's all like put together in one location. But I think the more constructive you are with stuff, I think the more creative you become. And I think that was just an example of that.
Yeah, and we kind of look at you guys as the real OG indie filmmakers, right? And really, like you spend your own money and you kind of started making this whole thing that we discovered pretty quickly. So can you just compare the technical side of it, like the cameras that you guys used to use,
Sure.
the money that you guys used to spend per episode,
Sure.
and compared to the comforts that you guys have earned for yourself now, when there's a producer on board,
Yeah.
and you guys can see it very clearly because it's like pretty much the same show and two versions of the same show, right? So
Yep.
compared to how you started off and what it is now, how much has
Yep.
changed in terms of the whole technical aspect of it?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that changed is the crew that we got, So when we were shooting Akara Karchal, I
Yeah.
was doing camera. Ajin was like, like doing the script and then like holding the boom mic. So he would have
Yeah,
like a
yeah.
script on one hand and a boom mic on the other. I would be
Mm.
moving lights back and forth. So I think the entire Akara Karchal was done under like 5 people. Like crew
Yeah,
wise, like I think sometimes even three people.
yeah.
Whereas now we have a crew of like about 20, 25 people, which is
Mm.
even now, but even then that is not a big crew. It's still
Mm.
very like slightly like a very smaller crew compared to what a normal show would be. But I think the discipline that we had in Akara Karshal, making it in a smaller budget, making things work in a smaller budget, I think that translated throughout pretty much everything that we've done, where we try to like minimize dates because we were supposed to do it just on the weekends. We minimize locations, we minimize a lot of things just so that the story talks more than like anything else. And I think that carries through Metro Park and most of the other projects that we do as well, because we were producers. We know where budgets go. We know that how easily budgets can get out of hand. So even when we were writing the scripts, when we write something, we're like, hey, you think we could, you think there's always that doubt. Can we pull this off, or should we like, scale it down in a way that the story, the joke still get conveyed, but we're not using that much of a resource.
And we're talking about a time. See, now there are like YouTube tutorials for everything, right? There's so much you can learn, especially about the whole technical side, editing, shooting, lighting,
Yes.
everything you can learn online. But
Yes.
back then, what did you guys do? Like, there's nothing that you can learn apart from books and stuff like that, right? So how did that whole technical learning happen?
Fortunately or unfortunately, it happened during the shoot. Our learning happened during the
Yeah.
shoot. Because
Yeah.
I look at, sometimes I try to watch Akarakasha, the first three episodes, and I'm like, wow, what do we make? It's so, like the camera angles are so bad, like everything about it, it's just like wrong. But like what
Hmm.
I loved about it is that we would write one week, editing, going back again, putting it on YouTube, getting those instant comments, like it's bad.
Hmm.
Like if an episode is bad, comments don't is ruthless, like you
Yeah.
know what you've done wrong. And
Yeah. Yeah.
that
Yeah.
was the biggest education for us. The
Hmm.
comments, the comment sections or the viewership, we're like, oh wait, we got this right because of this, and most naturally it happens. Everyone likes an episode when you could relate to that episode, you know like sometimes we
Hmm.
try to
Hmm.
like spice up an episode by bringing something in or some new element, something to trick the audience a little bit here and there, but it always fails, and if you go back to the episodes that really worked well, it's where we are just being authentic about the characters and about situations that we encountered in life. So I would say our biggest learning factor was YouTube itself. Now like you could just I've learned on pretty much everything on YouTube. Just
Hmm.
posting things up, getting feedback. But now it's like looking at other filmmakers. There's so much talent out on YouTube, and it's incredible. How these just a person with a camera is able to capture so many people, like millions and millions of people, just from their living rooms or their bedrooms. It's just incredible.
So like how you mentioned, when you look back at a few of those episodes, is it only the technical side that you feel is aged, or you feel the writing is somehow holding up, and like technically you would probably want to reshoot the whole thing all over again? Like how was the feeling when you look back at
I
yeah.
I think the writing, the acting, I think holds up a little bit better than the technical
Hmm.
stuff,
Yeah.
which is good, because I feel like, that's why like some people could still go back and like watch these episodes and still laugh at it because, I think it hasn't, I think some of the episodes at least aged well. Some of it hasn't, and I think that goes back to what I told you before about being authentic. And I think if you're authentic, if you're uh, tell the truth in storytelling, I think it'll take you far.
And what about the casting process? Like leave the technical side, the technical part aside, but then like casting for, I mean, I can't even imagine how difficult it must have been for you guys to convince actors to do this really experimental, like short film TV show idea back then, right?
Yeah.
Compared to now, like when you're casting for Metro Park, I'm guessing it's a lot easier. So how do you kind of look at the differences between casting then and casting now? When you guys are already established.
I think the biggest challenge for us was that when you're casting from America, the of course, the talent pool goes much smaller, whereas like if you're casting from
Yeah.
India, Kerala, like there's a bunch of audience, like bunch of artists.
Hmm.
Whereas here, like, you're fighting with people's times about like regular jobs. You're like either nurses or like some corporate jobs or something, So they have that, plus, out of this many population that are Malayalis, like how many of them are into arts, And if they're into the arts, how many of
Hmm.
them are good, you know so the talent pool
Hmm.
becomes
Hmm.
very, very small, and I think that's one of the things. And we just got lucky with one or two, like the actors that we got. We
Hmm.
went to Ajay and I went to a drama performance, and we kind of handpicked a couple of people, and luckily it worked out, especially with Sunny Chechi, Joseph Gregory, and all the crew. I think it kind of worked out naturally. It wasn't like something that we were forcing to do,
Hmm.
but
Hmm.
a lot of it, just became luck at that point.
And of course, now with Metro Zone, did you still kind of need to kind of go to like Indian actors, or would it have been very difficult to kind of cast an all American, or like all American Indian cast to kind of make Metro Zone happen? Metro Park happened. Yeah.
So I think Metro Park was a little different, where we kind of had established the fact that we've done a couple of projects in the past, and we knew that we wanted to get one or two like brilliant actors from India. So we approached Ranveer Shori with it. We and he said that I won't. I'll look at it. I like the premise of it, but I need to get the full script before I say yes to it. So Ajahn went back, rewrote the entire thing, first 10 episodes all together, and like we gave it to him, and he's like, "Wow, this is the first time somebody actually like sent like 10 episodes all together, so
Yeah.
we didn't figure out where the show is going." But like Ranveer, Purvi, like they were like really people that we wanted to take our craft forward as well. Because I feel like you know, like, if you have the right talent, you could really start experimenting more. You could really like write bigger things for the characters. So we wanted to like make sure that we grow as like writer directors as well.
What do you think is the future? Like, as somebody who kind of caught the YouTube wave even before it was a wave, how do you see the future kind of panning out? Like, we've already got so many stars from TikTok and Reels and all that. So
Yeah.
what is the next set? Like, where do we kind of go from here for the next set of artists and actors and directors to come,
I,
especially in Malayalam?
I honestly feel that it's there's a bunch of talent that's going to be explored, which is the greatest thing. It's not about like the main 4 or 5 stars anymore. I feel like you're going to find talent everywhere. I think you're going to have a lot of IT guys coming out into this field where they're really figuring out, wait, I could really do this and make money. I don't need to do like a traditional job. I could survive on like TikTok revenues, or I could survive on YouTube revenues and make a good living
YouTube
out of it.
revenues.
Yeah, and make a good living out of it, and probably far more than what they would have gotten at their regular jobs now, And I feel like, but I think what wouldn't change is the content, is the story, I think it still needs to be relevant. I think it still needs to have a great plot, have great characters, have great actors for all of that to work. I think those fundamentals won't ever change, even though the platforms change, even though, the timing of it change. So maybe we're not capable of doing an hour sitcom or like a 30-minute sitcom. Maybe it's like a 10-minute, 5
15
minute,
minutes,
15 minute, because I think that's where I think the world is going now. Where like you need to like make sure that you get your jokes, you get your thoughts out in the least amount of time without wasting people's time.
Okay, man. My last question: how has the entire writing relationship with Ajin been all these years? You guys are a team, and you guys have been writing for so long. How does it first of all, how does it really work when two people write? Like, how much of an idea is shared, and how much of an episode is yours or his, and things like that.
Sure. I think in the early process, I think we come together, we sit down, hash out all our ideas. Sometimes he comes with an idea, sometimes I come with an idea, but we say that, okay, this is the beginning, middle, end. And then he just goes off and like write. And I just give him that space to write, because then I don't interfere, Then he comes back, then we take it again. I'm like, I don't think this joke works, or I don't think this thing works. And there's a mutual respect back and forth. There's a mutual like understanding back and forth. And I think it's now we've known each other so much now that it just comes like second nature to us, where like he writes to my liking. The reverse is there. So I feel like now we get each other's like things that we don't even have to talk anymore. That we kind of automatically there's like that communication back and forth to see like, oh, this will work, this will not work, type of thing.
Yeah. Hey, thanks so much for talking to me. Like, a huge fan of both the shows. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.